Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, number one for sport in West Cork.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Following a weekend when Irish tears flowed in Shizuoka, newspaper headlines read Schmidt happens on Sunday morning and the entire nation wondered why Johnny Sexton was watching from the stands. We'll be switching our focus to the local rugby scene following wins for Skibbereen and Clonakilty in the Munster Junior League last weekend.
We'll also chat to West Cork Ladies football manager Brian McCarthy ahead of Saturday's county final clash with 6 in a row chasing Mourneabbey at CIT.
And as I mentioned, we're going to kick off today's show with the oval ball, and in a few minutes we'll chat to Skibbereen coach Denis McCarthy following their season opener on Sunday. But Kieran, we have to start with Ireland's loss to Japan on Saturday morning at the Rugby World Cup. Firstly, did you watch the game?
Yeah, I watched it, yeah. And I thought the first 20 minutes were actually quite encouraging. You know, Ireland ran in those 2 tries, and I know people have said after that they look like fortunate tries, but they weren't. I thought they were really well worked tries, and I thought Ireland were playing some good rugby in those first 20 minutes. But then the wheels really seemed to fall off the wagon there. Kind of, I know people are saying they kind of turned in that scrum, Jack. You know, just before half time, Japan won a scrum. I think Ireland gave away a penalty. You could see Japan really celebrating that, and maybe there was a switch in momentum there, but Ireland never got going after the first quarter. It was they were outplayed, they were outmuscled, outfought, outtaught. It was pretty depressing by the end, I'll be honest with you.
The pre-match handicap spread was 21 points, so that really tells you what the predictions were going into this game. Like, Ireland were factored to be 21 points better than Japan, and so that's like an extremely large margin. Like, that's kind of like Ireland versus San Marino. If it was soccer, there might be a 5 or 6 goal spread. That's how bad Japan were considered. Now, I know Japan aren't actually a 21 point worse off team, but before the game, that's what we were saying. And the way the Irish fans, and I include myself in that, and the pundits, and the way people spoke following their win over Scotland last week, there was an element of Ireland might win this World Cup.
I think we got a bit carried away now. Kind of, I know it's a gift of hindsight now, but it looks like kind of.
But I did hear some people who I would respect their rugby opinions did say, let's take a second here. Scotland are SH1T.
Yeah. And
we just beat them, but don't get too carried away. The Japanese in their home turf are going to be a tougher proposition, but still they were 6-1 underdog, the Japanese, 6-1. Yeah. So can you imagine? We'll just use the Irish soccer team as a comparison for the sake of argument. Can you imagine at the Soccer World Cup if the Irish soccer team were going into a game against a 6-1 underdog? So say if we go back to the 2002 World Cup, Saudi Arabia were probably in the realm of a 6-1 underdog. Ireland managed to beat them 3-0 on that occasion. But can you imagine the outcrying of anger if the Irish soccer team lost to a team like Saudi Arabia at a World Cup? There'd be probably a public inquest.
They wouldn't be left home.
The Taoiseach may resign. With some of the reaction I've seen around the Irish rugby team losing is the referee wasn't on our side. The conditions were tough.
And so on, yeah.
Jesus.
I think it should be called out for what it is, you know.
An absolute disgrace. I thought it was a disgrace of a performance.
Like, I know they say like it's tier 1 against tier 2 and all that, but like Ireland should beat Japan 10 out of 10 times. It's not 9 out of 10 times. Like, this is the same Japan that struggled against Russia, you know, to be quite honest. I know people are saying now, oh, Japan had their eye in the Ireland game all along, but that's nonsense, like, you know, kind of. It's you can't break it down like that, kind of. Ireland should have beaten Japan. There's no excuses. They just were second best in too many areas. For 60 minutes, they were played off the park by Japan. Like, Lee Chu came on there. He's I think, is he 38? 37, 38?
Yeah.
Like, he
dominated
the game, you know, against Ireland. The kind of, it's just Japan were to be quite honest, they were too good for Ireland. Ireland looked pretty poor, you know, kind of. And you know what, that
Look,
Scotland game is an
basic.
exception to the rule, because if you look at the form so far this year with the defeats like in the Six Nations to England and Wales, and then that hockey in Ireland got against in Twickenham a couple of weeks ago, maybe that's truer form that we should have been looking at. Maybe, like you said there, Scotland aren't the greatest team in the world, though they have bounced back to beat Samoa 34-0 with a bonus point win, which in a way could help Ireland, I think, now, because the last group game will be Scotland against Japan, and you're hoping Ireland will beat Russia and Samoa. They should.
Yeah.
They should.
But I wouldn't count on anything.
They should. Well, yeah. But then it comes down to that. If Ireland can get 2 big bonus point wins there, and if it comes down to that Scotland and Japan game, which is on the Sunday, the day after Ireland plays Samoa, and if Scotland win that, maybe there's a chance Ireland could still top the group and get the Springboks. But
you're talking again now like the way Irish fans are talking after the Scotland game.
I know,
You're glass half full. I'm generally a glass half full person myself, but based on Saturday's performance, I can only look pessimistically on it. And I just wanted to say, like, there's a reason bookmakers, you never see a bookmaker cycling a bicycle. They're usually driving big fancy cars. It's because generally they get their predictions right. So for them to have Japan as 6-1 underdogs and 21 point underdogs, like, there's a reason for that. It's because Ireland probably should be winning that game comfortably.
I think what we know as well, Jack, Ireland will become home after the quarterfinals if we get that far. Kind of this Irish team and what we've seen so far, and judging by their last game, which is probably I suppose as close an indicator as we have at the moment, there's not a hope that they could beat New Zealand or the Springboks. Maybe this excerpt now will be played back in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll have egg in my face. But hopefully after what we saw, I know we get Johnny Sexton back, but will one man make such a huge difference? Because
the way I heard people talking about on the radio yesterday, the likes of Malcolm O'Kelly was on, even Brian O'Driscoll, these kind of vaunted figures, they actually do think that Johnny Sexton can make that much of a difference, just the way he carries himself on the field. So if he is fighting fit,
hopefully, yeah, touch wood.
They said he was fit for the Japan game, but they rested him for some strange reason. But just before we move on from this, just West Cork resident writing in yesterday's Sunday Independent, Eamon Sweeney, I thought had a few funny lines describing Ireland's performance. He was scathing in his analysis. We might seem like we're being harsh, but if you want some scathing analysis, read Eamon Sweeney. But he described the look on Joe Schmidt's face when it looked all but over, of the look of a man who had just found out that his Anglo shares weren't what he thought they were in the days following the global recession of a decade ago. So that's the kind of look Joe had on his face. So I wonder how he's feeling now 2 days later. But anyway, we'll leave the Irish Shizuoka massacre there for now.
The Shizuoka's stunner.
The Shizuoka shock. Yeah. The Shaka in Shizuoka.
There we go. Yeah, that's the one. That's going to stick, that one.
But actually, just while we're on little headlines, I thought I stole one there from Sunday Independent, or was it the Sunday Times? Anyway, Schmidt happens. That was his son actually, and then the other good one I heard was Schmidt hits Japan, which I liked, possibly from the Sun as well. So big shout out to the Sun sub editors. Anyway, we'll leave that there as I mentioned, and we're going to talk to Denis McCarthy now. Skibbereen Rugby Club got their season off to a winning start on Sunday with a hard-fought 19-18 win over St Senan's in the Munster Junior League Division 1. And earlier today, he spoke to Kieran.
We're delighted to be joined by Skibb Rugby coach Denis McCarthy. Denis, you got off to a good start in the Munster Junior League Division 1 on Sunday, a home win against St Senan's. Can you tell us a small bit about it?
It was a good win, good way to start the season, and the home record is very important to us. So good to start like that. They're a big physical team, so they posed a big challenge to us. But we have a fairly quick, lively team, so we won out in the end, scoring the last few minutes to turn it in our favour. So a good start.
Great stuff. You're going to mention there the kind of home form. I suppose, how important was it to kind of kick off the season with a home win, and how important Denis too is that home form for the season, because you really want to make that home advantage count?
Yeah, very important. We'd be very proud of our home form every season, and we're a long way from a lot of teams, so we have to use that to our advantage. if you can win your home games, then it kind of sets you up well for the season, and it's trying to get the consistency then in the away form to, if you're safe in the knowledge that you're going well at home, you can push on then with the away games and try and build up the points.
What is the kind of hope
and try and get up the table?
Oh, sorry, Denis. I was going to say, what is the kind of target for the season ahead? Because Skib finished 8th in Division 1 last year, and are you looking to kind of break that ceiling and kind of head towards the top 4?
Yeah, I suppose we've progressed fairly consistently in the last 3 years. So we would have been struggling maybe 3-4 years ago, fighting relegation, and last year, like I said, we finished 8th, kind of fairly safely mid-table. We had a good start to the season, and I suppose the table doesn't lie. We were a bit inconsistent, so for this year we'll be hoping to push on again and try and challenge for the top 4, and maybe try and get into the All-Ireland Cup for next year. That's our target, and if you're up in that top 4 and things are going well, you never know where to take it.
Last season with the under-18s, it was fantastic winning the All-Ireland title. Is there many of those lads involved this year, Denis?
Yeah, we're bringing those lads through. We had 4 of that team made their debuts this weekend, their league debut this weekend, and there was another one who played in the County Cup on the week before. So like a quarter of the squad, we'll say, which is a nice number, and there's another 1 or 2 that are still, we'd hope to get in as the season goes on. Just they're still stuck in J and stuff like that, so that the plan is to try and hold on to those fellas and bring them through, the elite players then, like Jamie Shannon, has gone on to he's playing with Bows, and he talked out with Munster A for the last 2 weeks. So you'd love to hold these fellas, but you can't hold them back. So best of luck to him as well.
How important is it for these young fellas to come through? You kind of, I suppose, you always need like that conveyor belt of talent, and Skib has been, I suppose, over the last couple of years, even going to Gavin and Liam Coombs are now both in at Munster, and Dave McCarthy obviously was in Munster for a while as well. And you mentioned Jamie there. Kind of, there's a strong conveyor belt of talent coming through Skib. So how important is it that these young fellas after under-18s, Denis, do kind of progress on to the junior team?
Yeah, hugely important. I mean, that's the lifeblood of the team. We're not close to a major urban centre, so we're not going to be picking up fellas from other clubs. So we really have to try and hold on to our own, and bring them through and keep them interested. And it's a phenomenon across all clubs is participation rates, and participation rates dropping off after under-18. But I think we've a good club. It's an enjoyable. It's a good level of rugby. It's enjoyable to play, and anyone that does, show up initially, they generally seem to stay involved. Like even if they're not, like there is a step from underage up to adult rugby, and so some players have the ability to do that straight away. Others may take a little bit of time, but if they stay involved and they stay in touch, they'll all get there. And there's nothing beats, playing and winning with your friends, And we had I think at pretty much every level last year, Skibbereen had representation from under 16 development squad, Munster under 18, Munster under 19, Munster A, Munster Senior, and the girls as well. Of course, we were well represented in the Munster under 18 girls, and just short maybe a Munster Senior for the girls, but that'll come in time too, no doubt.
Just on the juniors, and how important too then is the continuity, even in the coach and the management team. Like you're in charge again this year. Mike Callan is still involved, Mike Limerick's still involved, Kieran Howerhan. Kind of that continuity is very important, isn't it too, to help the team progress.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, it's a volunteer organisation at the end of the day, so everyone's given their time. Everyone's given their time, from the minis coaches, under 8s, under 10s, and it all makes a contribution. And I think when you see the success of the likes of Liam and Gavin, Gavin now on a professional contract, and it's his making a career of it, and Liam hopefully following in his footsteps. Everyone from bottom up everyone in the club from bottom up can take pride in that. And from a junior point of view, that continuity is important. Just that we would, I would attend some of the underage matches when I can, that we would know the players that are coming through, that they would know us as well. That it's not an intimidating place to come up when they finish with underage rugby to come up to the juniors. The under-18s train on a Wednesday night earlier. They start a bit earlier than us, but we'd often, include them in games of touch rugby and stuff like that. And it just, again, that breaks down that barrier that there's no, they're not shy. They don't have to be shy. They kind of know fellas' names before they're even involved, and I think that's very important.
And these are very good times for the club. Like you touched on it there too, Denis, when you mentioned about, I suppose, there were 7 or 8 girls involved in the Munster under-18 girls team that won the Inter-Pros. Only go back earlier in the year, the Munster-Leinster Inter-Pro junior game was held in Skibbereen. The under-18s won the All-Ireland last year, kind of like we said, Gavin, Liam, Dave and all these. So like the club is, and as well as that, there is the kind of the redevelopment at the moment, the kind of the dressing rooms and all being set to be built. So it's a club kind of very much on the front foot too.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of in a broader context, that's the picture for Munster, is that they want a pathway for players from every club, and they've started looking outside now. The traditional powerhouses around Cork City and the schools and stuff like that. And Munster are reaping the benefits of it, I think, with their own lads and Fineen and Darren Sweetnam and guys from Tipperary as well. That the club being strong and, clubs like Skibbereen being in a good position, it can only help in the long term with Munster, because, Munster isn't an organisation that can necessarily go out and purchase success. So they need clubs like Skibbereen feeding through these players at every level. And, the best will make it through, but, it's still very proud thing for the underage players to be able to say, to have a jersey and to be able to say they represented Munster, and also the Munster juniors, the 3 lads we had involved last year in the squad. That's a big deal for them, and that's a huge success for them at the end of the season, to say that they're good enough to represent Munster junior.
Turning our attention towards this Sunday, you're Skibbereen are away to Newcastle West in Division 1. What sort of test are you expecting up there?
It'll be tough. Newcastle West, they've been up in the league in Division 1 for the last, the bones of 10 years, and last year they were pushing Clonmel a lot of the way, and they are always a fierce challenge, home or away. They generally have a good pack, they have a very good backline, and it'll be a big challenge for us. But I would be hopeful that we'll rise to it. I suppose in junior rugby it can be hard to plan too much for your next opposition, because it can change, the player profile can change from year to year with players moving on and players coming in and out and retirements and stuff like that. But I would expect, and they had a good win down across Avon last week, so I'd expect a fierce challenge up there this weekend. But hopefully we'll rise to it and hopefully come out the right side of it.
How would you gauge the strength of Division 1 this year? Even go back to last weekend, like Clonakilty, who just come up from Division 2, beat Bandon, who've been thereabouts in the Bislington for the last couple of years. That was probably a surprise result. We've Thomond back down as well. So what do you think of who will be the teams to watch and kind of the quality and strength of Division 1 this year, Denis?
Yeah, I think it'll be one of the most even leagues for a long time. I think most teams are capable of beating any other team on a given day. Mallow had a bonus point win last week as well. Mm-hmm. They're only up from Division 2. And with Clonmel, who would have been fairly consistent in winning leagues and winning junior cups, and they were an extremely good side. They're gone up senior now, so I think a lot of the clubs that would have been on their coattails see an opportunity now maybe to step into that void. But I could see that come the end of the season there wouldn't be a huge amount covering the from bottom to top. I think it'll be very, very even. It'll be very, very keenly fought season, and I would think that from top four, from the eventual champions, top four, and relegation, that each of those sections could go down to the last game of the season.
And while I have you on, Denis, I have to ask you about the Rugby World Cup. Obviously, there's rugby morning, mostly morning and noon at the moment with all the group games going on. Kind of Ireland shock loss against Japan last weekend, fierce, disappointing. Do you think Ireland can bounce back from that? And what you see is, how far can Ireland go in the World Cup? Will it be another kind of quarter-final exit, you think, or can we rebound from this setback?
Yeah, you'd hope they will rebound. I mean, I found one of the most interesting comments was the Japanese coach saying that Japan have had a year to prepare for their group games, whereas Ireland had 6 days for Japan realistically. So they had our number. They have been playing. They've been training to have a ball in play for 55 minutes, I think, whereas the average in an international game is something like 47 or 8 minutes. So they were used to playing those conditions. So they had Ireland's tactics and Ireland's game plan kind of, they had it off by heart, So credit to them. A lot of people are being critical of Ireland. I think you have to credit Japan. Like, they were excellent. They're a great team to watch. And like I said, they had their homework and their prep done. I don't think it's the end of the road for Ireland. We're still in a very strong position to progress. They'll need to win their last two games with a bonus point to be sure of it. But I think they will still go to the quarterfinal, probably facing the All Blacks. And I suppose if you want to win a World Cup, or that's what they're talking about, you got to beat the best. Will they beat the All Blacks? I don't know. I think England and Japan have given the rest of the world a bit of a blueprint to how you can get at Ireland. But you would hope that maybe that Joe Schmidt has something up his sleeve for the latter stages, that he's trying to keep his powder dry for the group, and that backfired somewhat this weekend. But you'd hope that Ireland aren't as limited as they appeared on Saturday morning, because they appeared to be, plan A, and that was it. And when that wasn't work, then we just keep trying plan A. And it just didn't work.
As a coach yourself, Denis, how important, like you said, if plan A doesn't work, how important is it to have a plan B that you can call on? Like, you kind of need something up your sleeve, like.
Sorry, I didn't get all that.
Oh, sorry, I was saying about how important is it to have, like, when you have a plan A, but how important is it too to have a plan B up your sleeve if plan A doesn't work? Coming from a coaching perspective, like your own.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you from my point of view, you have to, because you obviously, I would have a philosophy, and you build that philosophy around the players you have available to you. I think for Skibbereen, we say we try and play quite open rugby. It's enjoyable to play and it's enjoyable to watch, but you have to have different options. I mean, if you keep, we just say Ireland have one out runners. If you keep going at that and they're getting chopped every time, you've got to use that, then turn that to your advantage and say, okay, the opposition are going to be expecting us to do this, so we do something else. Maybe a sleight of hand or a trick play or something that, if they get so focused on thinking they know what you're going to do, use that to your advantage then and bring in another option, whether that be, I don't know, there's lots of things you can do, but I would think a plan B, well, you shouldn't totally change your game plan, but you should have different options available to you and to the players that they can implement during the game, and that they're confident enough to make those decisions during the game and change it up if they see, because as a coach, it's very hard. You can't directly influence the game once it's on, so it has to come through the players. They have to recognise, okay, this isn't working, but we've trained at this and we've also done B, so let's try B now. Brilliant, Denis. Come here.
Thank you so much for that great insight, and best of luck against Newcastle West on Sunday.
Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things sport in West Cork. Don't forget to pick up this Thursday's Southern Star newspaper, including our award-winning sports section with everything a West Cork sports fan could want. In shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. The Southern Star and the Star Sport Podcast. Number 1 for sport in West Cork.
On Saturday evening at 5:15 at CIT, the West Cork Ladies returned to county final action as they bid to stop Mourneabbey, landing their 6th county final in a row in a repeat of last year's final. We're going to hear from West Cork manager Brian McCarthy shortly, but before we do, I'd just like to get your thoughts on the game, Kieran. Can you see a way for the West Cork Ladies to overturn the legendary Mourneabbey side?
I think they can, Jack. Yeah, I think West Cork have a very good chance, to be quite honest with you. Like we said, Mourneabbey are going for the 6th in a row. And they're not only Cork champions, but they're Munster and All-Ireland champions too. So they are the best team in the country. We're talking to Shane Ronayne this week. He's the Mourneabbey manager. He said that he doesn't think that Mourneabbey will get a tougher test all season long than West Cork. That's how highly he rates this West Cork team. This West Cork team obviously they've 9 or 10 Cork seniors or Cork senior panellists in their lineup, so they're a pretty strong team. But it is a divisional side in West Cork against a club team like Mourneabbey, so the club team always has an advantage there. No matter what Mourneabbey might say about West Cork's pick, and they do have a big pick, you still can't kind of substitute. When a club team is together, like for years and years, like they've grown up knowing each other, they've won big games, they've lost big games, they know each other inside out, so that does count for something. And we saw that last year when Mourneabbey won the replay after they drew the original game with West Cork. So back to your first question, Jack, can I see the way that West Cork will win? Yeah, I can, yeah. Anya Terry O'Sullivan is flying at the moment. She got 2-7 in the semi-final there against Éire Óg last week, and she's been shooting the lights out all season long. 2-10 against St Val's in the opening game. She got 6 points against Éire Óg in the group stage, so she really is on fire. What West Cork will need, though, they'll need a lot more from the forwards around her. I don't think you can rely too much on Anya Terry because Mourneabbey will have a plan to stop her. So the likes of Libby Coppinger, Fiona Keating, Dara Kiley, Emer Kiley, Claire O'Leary, these players, they'll all have to chip in with scores. Niamh Cotter as well, she's a big player for West Cork. This West Cork team is strong from back to front, like from Martina O'Brien, the Cork goalkeeper, right up to Fiona Keating, a corner forward. Like, you've inter-county experience there. So they have a really good chance. And I think too, Jack, the fact that West Cork lost last year's county final, like, they have to remember the hurt and pain of that, and use that as some sort of motivator for Saturday evening up in CIT, because Mourneabbey, like we said, they're the best team in the country, and they're stronger this year than they are last year, with the addition of Noel Healy, the 3-time All-Star from Dublin. So West Cork really need to bring their A game. Can they do it? Yeah, I really think they can, and I hope they can too, because we've spoken here before about how important this team is to ladies football in West Cork. It gives players from junior and intermediate clubs a chance to play senior football and put themselves in the shop window for the Cork senior panel. So it'll be a huge boost to ladies football in West Cork.
And just on ladies football, before we move on to the interview, just something that crossed my mind as you were talking there. I seen some messages on Twitter last night and this morning that Aoife Fitzgerald may be returning to the role after he'd announced he was stepping away. Do you have any update on that?
No, that's the kind of latest at the moment is that the players went back to Aoife and they just they're trying to persuade him to come back, and it seems like he's very open to it, which is interesting, because only last month he walked away from the job, So if he comes back, and I think we're close enough, the same management team, maybe without James Masters, it's probably good news for Cork football again. Well, it is good news for Cork football, because you'll have that continuity then. You've a man who's been there for the last 4 or 5 years, who won an All-Ireland back with them in 2016. He knows his players inside out. He knows that they're not too far away from an All-Ireland. They lost the semi-final to Dublin this year. So it could be good news. Yeah, good news for Cork ladies football again. And I was talking to Shane Ronayne last week. I just asked him about when the job was vacant, and he'd heard nothing from the Cork County Board. He said, and he was already putting plans together for Tipperary next year. So looks like Aoife's coming back, and that's good news for Cork ladies football. And if he is coming back, I expect him to be at CIT on Saturday evening to watch this, because between West Cork and Mourneabbey, you would probably have 15, 16, 17 Cork senior footballers there, which is phenomenal, so it's going to be it's a big game for West Cork, and we caught up with their manager Brian McCarthy to get his thoughts on the clash with Mourneabbey. We're joined on the Star Sport podcast on a very important week by West Cork Ladies manager Brian McCarthy ahead of the county final this Saturday evening in CIT at 5 p.m. Cutting straight to it, Brian, talking to Mourneabbey manager Shane Ronayne, and he said that the West Cork team is better this year than it was last year, and that he expects West Cork to give them their toughest game of the year in any competition, that's County, Munster and hopefully Mourneabbey All-Ireland. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Thanks, Kieran, for having us. Obviously, I respect Shane Ronayne and for what he's done for Mourneabbey and also for his career in ladies football. It's very decorated, so in fairness, we have to respect his decision or his opinion.
Yeah.
I would say that on paper, no respect to the girls who appeared last year, we seem to be stronger. I would argue the case that Shane is sort of deflecting away from his own team in terms of Mourneabbey are actually stronger this year as well.
Yeah.
I think the transfer of Noel Healy to Mourneabbey is a huge asset to any team, and at the end of the day, we all know what happened in the replay. Mourneabbey outplayed us. They outperformed us on the day. So to me, they're raging hot favourites going into this title decider on Saturday, without a doubt. I think we all know the advantages of a club versus a division, and they maximised that last year. I think Mourneabbey, with the likes of Ciara, Breed, Roisin, Duran, Laura Fitz, Ellie Jack, Guan Morrow, Callan, Emer Meany.
Yeah.
Like, there's a list of inter-county players at either minor or senior level. So look, it's 50-50 on the day. We respect Mourneabbey. We've always had. We would like to think that Mourneabbey respect what we've done to try to challenge them. I think at the end of the day, maybe last year's game in the county final, first one actually brought Mourneabbey on quite a bit. It's probably their hardest game throughout the All-Ireland series. And we know that going up the next day, we're in for a ferocious battle. But we're looking forward to it because we know that we have girls who will be able to challenge Mourneabbey. And that's what we're there for.
Last year, I suppose, West Cork obviously got to the county final for the first time. Drew the first game 1-10 apiece, then Mourneabbey won the replay. You were the only team that kind of took Mourneabbey to replay last year. Kind of it shows the strength of this West Cork team. But it's always come back to Shane's point, and you kind of touched on it there. West Cork do seem stronger this year, Brian. I suppose looking at the two Coidies, Emer and Dara, they have a season of inter-county senior under their belt. Laura Mahoney from Skibbereen played a good bit for Cork in the league. Even Eve Cotter back for the full season this year. She only came back from Canada last year. The Bantry girls are obviously in there. You have a double all-star in Emma Spillane. So it's quite a strong squad you have there this year.
It's a great squad. I think you've named the girls that are there as well. And look, we say the decorated girls. I suppose we've a lot of new girls who've come in this year from other clubs like Tyne Corrig and a couple more from St Columns, and you have other girls from Bear as well who weren't involved in the squad in previous years. And I suppose, look, at the end of the day, you look at the final from last year, we're missing Mara O'Brien, missing Anya Hayes, and that experience alone of those two girls alone is huge loss. So we've had to do a bit of rebuilding this year.
Yeah.
We've looked at it. We've asked girls to play slightly different positions this year and to slightly experiment with them in terms of tactics, in terms of different positions, but yet always trying to be on the front foot. It's worked so far. I still go back to Mourneabbey. I still think as much as our girls are really good, we just need our girls to perform on the day. And look, Mourneabbey are out training 3-4 nights a week. Like, they have a strength and conditioning course, they have all this going on for them, and rightly so, and that's why they're All-Ireland champions.
Yeah.
Us, on the other hand, we still have to battle, try and get girls together. We work with the clubs as much as we possibly can. Denis, St Columns, Castlehaven, just to name a few, are still in their division, in their championships. So trying to get girls together to train and to work as a unit still is the stumbling block for us, but we're getting there. We are getting there, there's no question about it. I think the experience of, we said, the likes of Emma Spillane has helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
Niamh Cotter being back, yes, absolutely. I suppose it'd be great if Cork were still involved up to the All-Ireland series, but they're not. So we've been able to get these girls slightly more often than we normally would. But I have to say, we're looking forward to the final, no question about that. I think the atmosphere after the Aero game said it to me that they really are up for it. We're going to have some training sessions together between here and the final, obviously. And I think the last year we went up not knowing what to expect from us.
Yeah.
This year we're a bit more experienced, particularly the younger girls. And I know you mentioned like the two Kylies and Laura, who are still 19 years of age.
Claire O'Shea
even, 20 years of age. So Mourneabbey still have been in the last 5 finals. They're 5-time county champions.
Yeah.
That has to come for something. At the end of the day, it's in black and white. West Cork have won nothing yet. And I emphasise yet. We're not going up there for a good day out. We're going up there to win.
Looking at, you mentioned the Aero game there, that was the semi-final last week. West Cork won 3-13 to 1-7 in Clodove. Anya Terry will take the headlines because she got 2-7, but it seems it was a pretty good performance. Anya's your top scorer this year, Brian. Are you too dependent on her for scores? Because I was looking back over another game when you beat St Val's and Anya got 2-10 that game, so she's obviously top class. You know, she's a Cork forward for a reason, but she seems to be getting the bulk of the scores this year when she's playing. Is there any concern that too much goes through her? Or?
I would say, yeah, the simple answer to that is yes. You don't want one forward obviously scoring all the scores for your team.
Yeah.
I would say, however, in fairness to Anya, I think we've seen a change in Anya this year. We've asked her to do other things, and she has. We like Anya, Martina, you have Niamh Cotter, you have Melissa Duggan would be the leaders within the group really as such.
Yeah.
Anya obviously is a forward. She's one of the leaders of the forward along with Libby Coppinger. But I would say that the others are the likes of Fiona Keating there is starting to come in with scores. Dara, Emer Kiley, Libby Coppinger now the last day against Aero, I thought had a great game, and sometimes girls need a challenge, and I challenged Libby to get X amount of scores the last day, and she got 50% of that, which we're happy enough with. Now she needs to drive on and get even more scores, and just be confident. And when you look again at what we have forward line, and you look at the opposition forward line the next day, like you mentioned, Ciara, Deirdre, Laura Fitz, Ellie Jack, Noel Healy, Breed Sullivan, just to name a few. Now that's a 6 against our 6 forwards. Like if it's an open game of football, it's going to be a huge spectacle for supporters the next day. I think Mourneabbey and ourselves will look at it, and we'll have to come up with that we want this opposition to stop scoring, they want us to stop scoring as well. So it'll be an interesting game from that side of things.
I know a lot of people make the point, West Cork have 9 or 10 Cork seniors, but like you mentioned there, that Mourneabbey attack, Noel Healy was a 3 or 4-time All-Star. She was a 2017 Footballer of the Year. She's been a part of the Dublin team that's won the 3 in a row, obviously for the last 3 years. She only came on as a sub in the semi-final against St Val's, and Mourneabbey still put up 4-14. I think Devon got 2-6 that day. Ciara could have got 2-3. Like, they have talent to burn, and like they can score for fun there. So like there's an onus on the West Cork attack to try and hold this Mourneabbey attack, because like you said earlier, they're all Ireland champions for a reason, and they'll be favourites too on Saturday for a reason.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. As much as Shane would probably go against that opinion, I think at the end of the day, if you put it down in black and white, 5-time county champions, all Ireland champions against a team who at the end of the day have reached one county final, and that's what it comes down to. And you can look at the talent on both sides, and there is, I acknowledge there's great talent on both sides. I think with Noel coming on board, it makes them even stronger. But I think you have to ask girls, and this squad of players in West Cork, you would have to ask them, why did they get involved at the start of the year? Because they want to come up against the best. They want to challenge themselves against the best. And with a bit of luck, they want to beat the best. And at the end of the day here, Mourneabbey are the best. But there's nothing better than put yourself up against the best and come out victorious on the other side. We totally respect Mourneabbey for what they've done for Cork Ladies football, and fully endorse what they've done. However, as I say, we're there to go up on Saturday, and we're there to go and try and win it against the best team that are out there at the moment. And we're under no illusions, but we're quietly confident.
As a manager, can you use that hurt and pain and tears, you could say, after losing the final replay last year? Can you use that this year as a motivation to the girls to say, look how you felt in those moments after Mourneabbey won? You saw Mourneabbey celebrate the 5 in a row. You don't want that to happen again. Can you take much from last year's final with them final defeat as?
Yeah, I think I'll put it this way. I suppose when you lose any final for your club or your division or your county, there's always hurt at it. I look at our Cork girls and they're hurting after the Cork defeat to Dublin.
Yeah.
And they really are. So there's a driving force behind that. I think in this day and age, you can use it extra motivation, but if you're not motivated for a county final, and if you need that extra motivation, then there's something amiss. I don't think we need it. I think they know what the prize is at the end of the day. And I think the girls are hungry enough to go after it and really, really challenge and put up a really good performance on the day. It'll be interesting. I think it'll be a great game. We're certainly looking for all of West Cork to come out and support us, because I think I'll go back to the first day in CIT, the last day. I thought the West Cork support was phenomenal and drove us on. We were really under pressure, and we're looking for that again this year for the West Cork supporters to come out. I suppose extra motivation. I suppose we've had a lot of obstacles put us in front of us this year, even from the start. And I think that's created a bit of a siege mentality within the group that West Cork are here to stay long term, to help girls perform at senior level. And obviously, look, if you were a Cork manager, whether the previous Cork management or new Cork management, you were probably looking at different teams, and West Cork comes into that to say, well, these are girls who can compete at senior level. So there's benefits to everybody.
Looking at the journey to the final, so Brian started off with a big win against St Val's, 4-17 to 2 points. Then there was the win against Mourneabbey in the group stage, 3-5 to 0-6 in a dirty wet night in Clonakilty, but both teams were missing their county players that night. Then the group stage win against Éire Óg, 1-14 to 1-10 before you beat Éire Óg again in the semi-final. What was the most pleasing performance of those four for you, and why?
They're all good in their own respects. I suppose the first one against St Val's, we came together, and look, I think, in fairness, I think that's a very misleading scoreline. I think St Val's didn't perform on the night. Yeah. I think there's one of those ones, a freak result, where normally St Val's would really challenge us, and I just think we got on top early, and look, it was one of those where we just drove on. In terms of the one in Clonakilty, which was probably one of the most horrible nights I've ever come across for football, and the night of the two pitches and the floodlights, I think both teams will learn an awful lot from it. I think, fairness, there was no Cork girls on either side. The girls that went out for West Cork that night, we asked them to do a simple job, and they performed and worked very hard. I think Mourneabbey probably will be hurting after that. However, we learned an awful lot about our squad that night, and we're looking for, and it brought on our squad, and it's combined the squad closer together. So that was a good result for us. We knew against Éire Óg the day after Cork lost to Dublin in the All-Ireland series that it would be very hard to lift our Cork girls, and it was. But in fairness to them, they turned up on the day and they put in what I call a reasonably good performance, as best they could considering what happened the day before. And Éire Óg really challenged us. The last day against Éire Óg, I just thought, the minute I entered the dressing room, you knew there was a sense that these girls are really, really up for it, that they were not going to let this slip. They were going out. We want to go on the front foot straight away, which we did. Now, in saying that, to Éire Óg, they put up a really good challenge to us on the night, but I just thought overall we were slightly the better team on the night.
You've actually preempted one of my final questions, Brian. I was going to say, for football fans in West Cork, not just ladies football fans, get to CIT this Saturday night at 5 o'clock for this county final, because you've some of the best footballers. You have the best footballers in the county playing, like from Martine O'Brien to Ciara O'Sullivan, from Dirren to Melissa Duggan, like Niamh Cotter. Like, it's so much talent. Talent will be on display at CIT on Saturday evening. But for West Cork, you want as many people there as possible to kind of. It's another chance for this West Cork team to create a bit of history and win this title for the first time. So hopefully we get a huge crowd. I know the ladies football clubs from Beara to Valleys to Denis, Castlehaven, they'll all go and support. But wouldn't it be great to get more and more supporters there to kind of, even if it's at 16 person, to kind of just get West Cork over the line?
You hit the nail on the head, I think, Kieran. In fairness, I think it's been interesting since last year's final, the amount of people who would be, I suppose, not associated with ladies football but more male football have come up and said well done and encouraged us to drive on this year. And I think even talking to people on the ground, they're looking forward to going to see the ladies football final because West Cork are in it. So yes, we're asking anybody to come along and cheer us on the day, because there's no question about it. we are going to be under pressure. We know that. And when we're under pressure, we need the crowd to come behind us and work with us like they did in the final last year and to drive us on. The girls have put in huge commitment. As big as people say that West Cork is, and as strong as the geographical situation of West Cork means that we're on a back step straight away. But in fairness to these girls, they've come together as often as we can, and they've put in a lot of work this year and a lot of commitment. And it's been enjoyable, I have to say. It's one of the years where you've said to yourself, yeah, there's a good team spirit there, but we need every bit of that and the support. Saturday week in CIT at 5 o'clock.
Hopefully all that work will be rewarded on Saturday night. Best of luck, Brian.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things sport in West Cork. Don't forget to pick up this Thursday's Southern Star newspaper, including our award-winning sports section with everything a West Cork sports fan could want. In shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.thesouthernstar.ie/e-paper. The Southern Star and the Star Sport Podcast, number 1 for sport in West Cork.
Welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast, and before we wrap up today's show, we're going to take a quick look at what's coming up in this week's Southern Star. Kieran, I expect it's going to be a busy one.
Yeah, it's pretty busy as you'd expect for this time of the year, Jack. A lot of GA as well. Clonakilty lost to Duhallow in the county senior football semi-final, so that's scuppered our Clonakilty Newcestown's kind of dream West Cork semi-final. So
all our plans gone out the window.
All our plans, yeah, all our planning as well. So so what we have now, Newcestown away to Duhallow in 2 weeks' time. Obviously we build up to the West Cork and Mourneabbey game. Turn into the Premier Intermediate Football Championship. We've reports and reaction from Bantry Blues' big win against Bandon and Éire Óg's win against Ballingeary. And Bantry and Éire Óg will now face off in the Premier Intermediate semi-final in a couple of weeks' time. So plenty there for both sets of supporters to dig their teeth into. Also we have a piece this week on Caoimhín Kelleher, the young Cork man who made his full debut for Liverpool in the Carabao Cup last weekend. Everyone knows he's from Cork and he played at Ringmahon Rangers and he's from Blackrock. But he's actually really, really strong links to Dunmanway Town. So we just kind of, I suppose, developed those links. You know, his father Ray kind of trained and played with Donnies, and his grandfather was from Dunmanway. So it's another West Cork link. Like I put up on Twitter during the week, Jack, I think there's a West Cork link to nearly everything good in the world. You know, and again, this is it. You know, it's a nice local link to a very talented young fella who could go a very long way. This one isn't even reaching though. It's a solid, genuine link. Yeah, it's a super link. You know, kind of. It's obviously that Donny Dunmanway blood. You know, that breeding. That's kind of that's helping Liverpool keep clean sheets in the Carabao Cup. So Dunmanway Town can take some. And Klopp couldn't have been more effusive in his praise of him after the game. Mm-hmm. Everyone seems to be really giving this fella like the big thumbs up. Like he's been called big time, isn't he? Yeah, it's unusual for a young goalkeeper to be getting the kind of. Klopp called him an outstanding talent before. I was reading some piece about him and stuff, and then he's obviously the Ireland under 21 goalkeeper. Then in his post game comments, he was saying how this guy, you know, he was like, this guy, you know, he's basically like. Well, it is Klopp, you know. I know. But he does, like, he hasn't come out speaking about Adrian, his second choice, in that. So he just says about Adrian, yes, he's a solid goalkeeper. But for Caoimhín, he's given him the full. That's brilliant. Great to see. Klopp treatment. Great to see. And you know what? He's another young Irish footballer who's kind of starting to make waves. And I know there's pessimism at the moment, but there's a couple of like the Tri-Parrots and Connolly and a couple of more of these young fellas coming through. So kind of encouraging. Well, it is encouraging. Well, a double whammy of encouragement because our dear leader Jesus has stepped away, and now we've got a bunch of young, exciting talent coming through. So long may it continue. Yeah. Talking of exciting soccer talent, we have an interview with Denzel Fernandez of Drummer League, who helped Shelbourne win promotion to the Premier Division. So we caught up with Denzel. He's actually back home in Drummer League for the next couple of weeks, and he's back working in the bakery in Super Value in Dunmanway, which is so from winning the league title with the First Division league title with Shells, he's now back working in the bakery. Some scenes in Tolka Park when they were promoted. Surely we can get him on at some stage. 100% we will have to get Denzel in here. Kind of he's only back for a couple of weeks. He's moving back up to Dublin back in January for this was the start of pre-season, and he's getting a job up there as well. So he's just probably enjoyed his couple of weeks at home before. Congratulations to him. Moving back to the capital. So so plenty in this week's Star. So again, thanks for listening to this week's Star Sport Podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. So if you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to the show.